difficulties. So thank you again for joining us on today's webinar. My name is Cody Somerville, and I'm a program specialist in the Early Childhood Education Division here at the Texas Education Agency. I'm joined today by my colleague Tamla Olsby, and we'll do some further introductions here in just a moment. Before we get started, I want to make sure that everyone is aware there are handouts in the control panel. You can find those under the handouts tab. There should be 4 of them there. I also want to let you know that Cassie Longoria is monitoring the chat box and the questions feature. So if you have any issues, please feel free to type them there. Towards the end of the webinar, we will be doing a question and answer time, and we'll use the question box in order to answer those questions. So we will go ahead and get started. Hopefully by the end of today's webinar, you all will understand the structure of the early childhood program self-assessments, be able to locate resources to help you implement the early childhood program self-assessment, and know how to use the tool. Tamla and I have been responsible for developing the early childhood program self-assessments for pre-K and along with the new guide. We spent a good chunk of the end of last spring and through the summer developing these tools, and are excited to share them with you today. I'll pause a moment for Tamla to say hello.
Hello, I am glad you're here, and we are very excited to share these new tools with you.
So as we begin our conversation today, we want to start off by sharing what the purpose of the program self-assessment is. And we have some very intentional purposes for these tools, and also some purposes that we do not intend the tool to be used for. When we think about why the tool was developed and how we want you to use it, we envision the tool as a means of internal reflection and evaluation of your current practices. So it's something for you in order to identify your areas of strength and opportunities for growth, and to use that to inform continuous improvement. It is a voluntary tool, and we hope that you use it over multiple years so you can measure the growth in quality in your program. It is not intended to be a tool that grades or scores or labels programs, but rather a helpful tool. Along with those lines, we don't intend for the tool to be used to publicly compare or judge programs, and it's most definitely not a staff evaluation tool. This is a program evaluation tool. It has very, very different purposes from that staff evaluation tool. We also don't intend the tool to be used within districts to compare between campuses. This tool started being developed and was released in spring of 2017 under the name of the High Quality Pre-Kindergarten Self-Assessment. That tool was then rolled out in a more robust manner in spring of 2018, when a training was delivered at each education service center in each region around the state. After Tamla and I conducted those statewide trainings, we then sent out a public survey to gather input and feedback on the high quality pre-kindergarten self-assessment. And we used those surveys to revise the pre-K tool and develop a kindergarten tool. And in September, we released the early childhood program self-assessments for pre-K and kindergarten, along with an implementation guide. So you'll see that there's a new look and feel, and that there's a new updated name as well. We will be working on a grade 1 and grade 2 tool as well, and those will be coming within the next year. So as we look at the main changes from phase 1 of pre-K to phase 2, you'll notice that we've combine the access and enrollment components. We've added some administrative strands to the staff qualifications section, and that we have created a new strand or a component of learning environments. We got rid of the program evaluation component and added in a transitions component. And so now I'll hand it over to Tamla, who will give a more in-depth look into these new tools.
All righty, so you have a picture here of the 3 tools that Cody has been referencing. So in September, we released not only the pre-K tool, but the kindergarten tool and the early childhood program self-assessment guide. So there are actually 3 documents, and again, those are available to you in the handout section. So to give you an idea of an overview of these tools, there are 8 components. You're going to see 6 of those components on this slide. The components Cody went over earlier, but you can see on this slide that there are strategies that are aligned with each of those components. Some of those strategies are only in the pre-kindergarten tool. And the strategies that you see a little asterisk behind, for instance, in the access and enrollment one, the first one on the left-hand side, eligible 4-year-olds, eligible 3-year-olds, half day and full day, those are only available in the pre-kindergarten tool. Here are the other 2 components, and you can see family engagement's long, so there are different strategies, and each component could be a different length. Okay, so when you actually get into the tool, you're going to see different sections. So for instance, on this slide, it will show you the bar across the top will list the component. It then on the left-hand side, you will see strategies, and those would align with the past 2 slides that we just showed you. And then there are 3 levels of quality. One is called developing, one is called proficient, and one is called exemplary. And those are the rating levels. And then under each of those are indicators, which are a description of each of the 3 levels of quality. So that is what the self-assessment rubric looks like. As stated earlier, most of the program self-assessment, the pre-K version and the K version, are actually, they're identical. So if you look at this slide, we have between the 2 tools, there are 53 strategies in the pre-K tool, and there are 47 strategies in the kindergarten tool. Of all of those, 38 of them are identical, verbatim, identical. And 7 of them are similar. So you can see the 2 tools really are very closely aligned. And now I'll turn it back over to Cody.
So one of the things that we discovered as we were doing the trainings around the state and through the public survey that we did is that there was a need for an additional document to provide guidance on how to utilize the program self-assessment. And so as we thought about that, we developed the Early Childhood Program Self-Assessment Guide, which is a companion to both the pre-K and kinder tool. There are kind of 4 main types of information within the guide. The first is just general guidance, which provides information related to the suggested timeline, what sources of evidence you might use, different formats for completing the self-assessment. It provides some guidance around creating a committee to conduct the program self-assessment, and it also in that section gives some guidance on how to norm your ratings within your district. We also felt that there was a need to define a lot of terms that are used throughout the rubric, as well as provide additional information to help you understand the indicators. The indicators have very specific language, and we all know that from one program to the next, there can be slight variations in understanding or how certain words are defined. So we wanted to make sure that we define terms that are used in the indicators, as well as create some FAQs and provide answers to those as well. The next section of the guide contains resources for utilizing the self-assessments. So that includes a crosswalk between the pre-K and kinder tool, a form so that you can compare side-by-side results from pre-K to kindergarten. And there's a few templates in there as well to help you create continuous improvement plans and report results to families. The last section of the guide contains links to articles and resources organized by each component to support quality improvement. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the guide and just show you a few features to help you navigate through the guide. So here I have the guide. I know it might be small on your screen. The great thing about the table of contents is that everything is clickable. So if you can utilize the guide on your computer rather than printing a copy, it might be easier to navigate because it is a pretty large document. So you're able to see the 4 different sections that we have, and then the information in there as well. What I want to point out is in the resource section, there are a few templates that you can access. So I'm going to navigate to the resource section. And here is that pre-K kinder side-by-side where it shows if things are the same, similar, or different by each strategy. But then we get into some of these templates. So here's the side-by-side results that you can utilize. And then we get into our worksheet. So the nice thing is you can click on this worksheet and it will download a Word doc version of it. Let me go ahead and open that up. And so then here is an editable Word doc that you can use with your self-assessment committee, and you don't just have to rely on handwriting everything. So you can get the template for the worksheet, and as well as for the continuous improvement plan. And once again, you just click on the picture of it, and it will download that Word doc and provide you with that template. So we're excited to have those features in there. Hopefully makes acting upon the results less of a lift on you, and gives you some really actionable items to utilize. So I'm going to take us back in to our webinar presentation, and I'm going to turn it over to Tamala. And I'm going to advance to where we left off. And we are going to now start practicing utilizing the program self-assessment.
All right, let's do some practice. So if you will look at this scenario with me, what we've done is we have made up a school district. It is the ABC school district, and this scenario is focused on the physical arrangement of the learning environment. So that's where you would see it in the self-assessment. Under learning environments, under the strategy of physical arrangement. We're going to read it right now, and then we will score it next. So in its back to school document provided to teachers to help them prepare for the beginning of the school year, ABC School District includes a section on setting up classrooms. Teachers are required to include space for large group, small group, individual activities, and at least 7 learning centers within their classroom setup. Campus principals are provided a classroom setup checklist to complete for pre-kindergarten and kindergarten classrooms prior to the first day of school. Within each month's curriculum unit guide, the ABC School District includes ideas for the 7 learning centers. Some of the materials needed are provided through links to websites with instruction on how to make the materials, and other materials are kept in a centralized area for teachers to access. Sounds pretty good. So let's now look at this section of the self-assessment under learning environments and physical arrangements. And what I would like you to do now is read the 3 descriptive indicators, one for developing quality, one for proficient quality, and one for exemplary quality. And I'd like you, we're going to take a poll. And so we're going to get that ready. So read that, figure out where you think the district should be graded, and then we'll take a poll and see what happens. I'll start talking and give you a little time to do that.
So we'll give folks about 15 more seconds to decide where you think the district is, and then we'll launch the poll, and you will click on developing, proficient, or exemplary based off of where you think the district lies. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that poll. And then if you will select which rating level you think the district is at. So about 46% of people have casted their vote. We'll give you about 10 more seconds. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close the poll. I'm going to share those results.
Whoa, so it looks like most of you thought it was proficient. There were some of you that thought exemplary and some thought developing. Looks like 73% thought proficient. Well, let's go back and show you what we think it is, and we'll explain why. We actually thought it was exemplary. Not only did the LEA provide guidance and resources to the teachers, but remember they had a checklist at the beginning of the year. So that shows a little bit of systematic insurance that everything is going well. And they also had 7 learning centers. So that shows you a little bit about how sometimes there's gray areas here, and really it takes some talking through. So let's try another one. This one's a little shorter, so hopefully that'll help. This practice scenario focuses on how the learning environment is linked to classroom instruction. And it says, also included in each month's curriculum unit guide is a checklist for teachers to use when evaluating learning centers. The checklist helps teachers determine what materials are most likely to connect to student interest and support the unit's learning goals. Okay, we'll now go on to the developing proficient and exemplary descriptions of quality. I'm going to have you go ahead and read through those, and then we'll do the poll in just a couple of minutes, and we can figure out what you think about this one.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and launch that poll. Give us about 5 more seconds.
All righty, it looks like 2/3 of you thought it was proficient, with 19% saying developing and 16% saying exemplary. And we agree with you. So in this scenario, the LEA did provide teachers with guidance and support. You could tell they were evaluating the items that were in the learning centers, and they included things about the student interest and also the curricular content. What they were missing was any assurance that the diversity of the students, their race, their gender, their language, etc., was being represented well. And so that would be the item that if they wanted to improve, that would be a fairly easy thing to improve on, and then they would be exemplary. You all are doing awesome. Okay, we've got one more to practice. Okay, this scenario is focusing on the procedures and routines that are associated with the learning environment. And so in this scenario, it says, also included in the back to school document is a reminder of the importance of establishing routines and procedures with a few examples of routines and procedures that support independence and self-regulations, such as using a visual timer 5 minutes before cleaning up the learning centers. So let's now look at the 3 levels of quality, and I'll give you a little bit of time to read developing, proficient, and exemplary, and let's figure out where they are in procedures and routines.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and launch that poll. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll.
All righty. It looks like there were about half of you that said developing. 38% of you said proficient, and 13% said exemplary. And when we looked at this, we thought it was developing, because the LEA is providing some guidance. We really didn't think they were providing a lot of supports to the teachers, which would then have moved them. They had written guidance, but not necessarily supports. And that brings up a great example of, in this case, I would immediately go to the guide, because you would want to see what are the definitions for guidance and supports. So, and of course, for exemplary, we did not see any method for them to systematically ensure that all the teachers were were implementing the procedures and routines as they were expected to. So, good. Well, hopefully this gave you a little bit of chance to practice. So now you know approximately what you would do. You would go through all of those strategies, and you would decide in your group or at your either your district site or within your whole district, depending on the size of your LEA, and you would record the results on this page. And these are, I gave you, there's a picture of the one in the pre-K, and there's a picture of one in the K, and you can see they're very much alike. It is really good when you record it on this page, because sometimes when the results are all displayed together, it gives you a different picture. And so we really like to recommend that LEAs use this.
And this page is located at the back of each of the program self-assessments.
Great. All righty, Cody, you're on.
So let's talk about next steps. So we really encourage you all to utilize this tool to evaluate the quality of your pre-K and kindergarten programs within your district. We want to make sure that you are able to locate the program self-assessment. So they are in the handout section of today's webinar, but you won't always be able to access them there. So I want to show you on our division's website where you can find them. So I'm going to start them at TEA's homepage. And when you go to academics, just hover over it and click on early childhood education. Over on the right, you can go to educator resources. And you'll see under the related content tabs, there is the early childhood program self-assessments. So when you click on that, it takes you to the page. It provides some information, and then you have the links to the guide, the pre-K tool, and the kinder tool. So the link is also in the PowerPoint, and if you download the PowerPoint from the handout section of today's webinar, then you can have that direct link to it. You can always call Tamla and I too if you or send us an email. We can send you the link. So first step is making sure that you can locate those resources. We would recommend that you start by downloading the guide and reading that first section that provides guidance on the timeline, your sources of evidence, your formats for completing it, how to establish your committee, and also norming your ratings. So this will get you up and going to set yourself up for success as you conduct the program self-assessment. So we're now going to take a few minutes. We have a good amount of time left, so we will be answering your questions that are in the questions box. We won't be able to get to everyone's questions, but we'll get to as many as we can.
All righty. How about if I take the first question, Cody?
Sounds good.
Okay, it says, whichever self-assessment tool a district uses, whether TEA sample or the district's own, do they have to turn this in to TEA? And the answer to that is no. Remember at the beginning, we said these are all voluntary. So there is no place for you to upload your results as of right now. So this is supposed to be a support document to help you continually improve your program. You want to take one, Cody?
Yep. Let me just try to make sure that I'm. So along those lines, there's some questions about reporting in PEAMS and ECDS, and submitting your program self-assessment result is not part of either of those systems. There was, though, added where you can indicate if you used the TEA's tool or the district's tool, but you're just reporting which you used.
Yeah, so that is in PEAMS, and it is an added, I think it's under program evaluation type. So you're not putting in a score, you're just putting in, yes, I use TEA's self-assessment tool, or I use another tool. So that is all that is asked. I'm going to go ahead and do the next one. In the timeline, it suggests starting in February. If we are just starting the process for the first time, might it take a while to get started? Yes, it will. But I can tell you that we would still suggest that you start pretty much in February. It probably will just take you more time. So I'm not sure starting it earlier would help. Just realize that your meetings, where normally after you do this 4 or 5 years, they'll take perhaps an hour. During this first year, it might take you an hour and a half. So yes, it's just like anything else. The first time you do it, it takes longer. And remember, those are suggested timelines.
So the next question is it recommended to complete both the pre-K and K tool within the same scheduled meetings? And I would say yes and no. It really depends on the structure of your district. There are times where pre-K is kind of owned by one department and kinder is part of another, so it may not make logistical sense in order to do them together. There is a lot of overlap between the two tools, so you could do them at the same meeting, but you would have kind of different committees working on the pre-K one from the kinder one. I do think it would be helpful, though, to have a joint meeting after the results have been generated from both tools to talk through the results of both grade levels and look for alignment.
And you know what? That is leading me to the next question, which I think is very similar. And what if the district does this for pre-K and we are not sure about kinder because it is monitored through another department? So a very similar question. And again, I think our recommendation, our division, the Early Childhood Education Division, focuses on the services given from pre-kindergarten through second grade. And so that is why those are considered the early childhood years. And so our recommendation would be that you use pre-K, use K, when first and second come out, use those, even if different people are doing the tool or completing the tool, mainly because there should be very strong alignment through those 4 grade levels. And that alignment will be strengthened if a district or a charter uses all of the tools.
So we have a question about, do you have to use the tool because it's voluntary? And no, you do not have to use the tool. It is a voluntary tool. It is another resource that our division has put out to the field to support quality improvement. So you are not required. However, in implementing Writer 78, a district should conduct some type of program evaluation and make results available to families. So this is a tool that you could definitely use to implement Writer 78.
I think we covered most of the questions. So obviously, if you have additional questions, please do not hesitate to email either Cody or I or call us, and we would be more than happy to discuss that with you.
Well, we appreciate your time this morning, and we look forward to supporting you all as you implement these tools, and we look forward to the development of our grade 1 and grade 2 tools, and hopefully those will be available for your use starting next school year. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.